Hey there, how there, ho there. Chef Cutter Diamond welcome you to another Cutter Top 10 sports video. And today we look at pretty much one video per sport that I'm trying to get at. And this one will be containing the top 10 NCAA football teams of all time. Now, you may not know it, but I'm kind of an NCAA football nerd. Always tinkering with my NCAA football 11 for the PS2, doing tournaments like of the great players from each squad, the like Kentucky having Tim Couch at quarterback alongside Babe Pirelli and Andre Woodson. Guy Y.A. Tittle. No, it was LSU. Well, or George Flanda, yeah, and all that. Just for example. Well, I know I could say Arkansas, but since I don't have an Arkansas T-shirt, I can't really say it in an Arkansas shirt. But nevertheless, these teams are very fantastic and have done pretty well for themselves in the sport of NCAA football. So here we go. Number 10 is the 1988 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The Fighting Irish were and have been the greatest national title team of all time, winning 12 of these bad boys. In 1988, Lou Holtz, just a few years after getting the job, decided he needed to get the Irish back to national respectability, which they were. They were 12-0. They actually had to face the Miami Hurricanes, the USC Trojans, and Michigan Wolverines in the same season, and yet they still were unflappable. They won. They beat all three of them. Tony Rice became a Notre Dame superstar. They had ferocious defense. Ricky Waters was on that team. He was good and all that. They had great unity and ability to win close games. And when they beat West Virginia in Fiesta Bowl that ice day at 12-0, they were the #1 team. Unfortunately for Notre Dame, that's the last time the Irish have been national champions. Although they were close in 2025, losing to Ohio State in the CFP, or College Football Playoff, you and me. Number 9 is the 2005 Texas Longhorns, one of the most lovable underdogs, even though they went undefeated. The 2005 Longhorns had a great start the previous year. In the 04-05 season, they won the Rose Bowl on a last-second field goal against Michigan, and people thought that Vince Young and crew were making it happen, and they did. They won some very close games. They won some massive blowout games, including the Big 12 title game against Colorado, and then they had to face the juggernaut, which was the 2005 USC Trojans. It was one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Rose Bowl game of all time. Although 2017 would probably say, no, I have the best team game of all time. But anyway, it was a tooth and file thing. 41-38, Texas won, thanks to Vince Young's 4th and 5 with 21 seconds left, and sent Keith Jackson into retirement as a play-by-play guy. Rightfully so. He's got the corner. He's got it. He heads for the corner. He's got it. But yeah, to beat USC like that was just amazing. And USC had like a 30-plus game winning streak, too. Now, of course, to note that the 10 teams had to have won the national championship. So, anyway, 2005 Texas was just good. Number 8 is the 2019 LSU Tigers. And Arguian, and I'm sorry, I have bad pronunciation skills sometimes, led a few teams to major wins, including USC. LSU just had to have him, and he got it. LSU were undefeated at 15-0. They won their 12 games in the regular season. They had to go to the SEC championship. I believe it was Bama or Georgia. I can't remember who they beat, but they won. And Joe Burrow, their quarterback, who was the Heisman Trophy winner and, current Bengals quarterback, spelled his last name not Burlow when LSU played in the SEC title game. He did it with the French Cajun spelling of Burreaux. But he had record-breaking numbers. LSU was not known for their passing offense, but he made it happen with a few great receivers such as Justin Jefferson. The Tigers had to face 7 teams that were in the top 10 out of the 15. Oh yeah, I forgot to add that they had to go through the old CFP, meaning the 4-team playoff. Had to go to the semis and finals. They beat Clemson in the title game 42-25. LSU had Justin Jefferson. Also at wide receiver was Jamar Chase, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the running back position. Number 7 is the 2004 USC Trojans. Pete Carroll was a good coach in college. He helped many teams do well, and then once he got out of college, he went to the NFL to coach for the Patriots, among others, but failed miserably. He was a bust as a coach. In Seattle, he thought he had Seattle going to the playoffs in the 98 season, but unfortunately, that was the year at which Testaverde was given a touchdown, even though his helmet crossed the line, not the ball. Pete Carroll went back to college. USC was happy to bring him in, and he led USC to one of the great dynasties of all time. Now, of course, we all know about the whole thing in the mid-2000s, USC being investigated for improper benefits and all that, having their national titles taken away, and then Reggie Bush basically having to give up his Heisman Trophy. But USC, the 2004 squad, beat Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl 55-19. Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lendell White, a great backfield, if you will. Leinart at QB, Bush and White running the ball. They averaged 38 points per game. They had a good defense. They had West Coast football dominance. Of course, this was the year Reggie Bush won the Heisman, and I believe they gave it back to him. So, yeah. And then in 2005, they ran into a buzzsaw in Texas. Could have won back to back. Number 6 is the 1979 Alabama Crimson Tide. They were 12-0. They faced Penn State at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans in one of the most famous 1-versus-2 matchups of all time. Back before college football made sure that one faced two, and of course the CFP playoff was just a sparkle in everyone's eye. But yeah, Bama Penn State, that the great movement. The defense only allowed 5.6 points a game. That's not even a touchdown, or an unconverted touchdown, if you will. They outscored their opponents 383-67, so that was a plus 316 percentage. They had some great defense of guys like Major Ogilvie and AJ Jr. I wish I could tell you the Bama quarterback at the time, but I can't. But anyway, it was famous for that Bama goal line stand late in the fourth quarter against Penn State, in which they prevented them from going to the end zone, and that's when they won the national title. Number 5 is the Nebraska Cornhuskers of 1995. The 95-96 Cornhuskers were very dominant. They were 12-0, outscoring opponents 638-174. They did score 50 points per game, because 50 points per game would be 600 points, right? Yeah. The Huskers knew what they were doing. They had the option offense. Tommy Frazier was a great quarterback, and they actually had to fight off the death of Brock Behringer, who was their backup, who died in a plane crash. Lawrence Phillips, when he was making headlines for his running attack and not for his domestic violence, crapola, was just unstoppable and all that. Nebraska had defense. They had Grant Wistrom and Christian Peter, among others. And of course, I think they still had Trev Alberts, didn't they? I don't think they did. But anyway, yeah, Nebraska clinched their second of 2 straight championships and all that. They dominated. They beat Florida in the Fiesta Bowl 62-24. And that was the game in which Tommy Frazier went through the entire Florida Gators defense to score a touchdown. And as Jim Nantz says, how many tackles can one man break? Unfortunately for Frazier, he had some kind of blood thing. I can't remember what it was. But NFL teams were scared to draft him, even at another position. So he went up north to the CFL for a little bit. Yeah, Lawrence Phillips was great when he was in the news for all the right reasons. Number 4 is the 1972 USC Trojans. So USC had another great head coach. His name was John McKay. And like Pete Carroll, after his USC dynasty, he was an NFL coaching candidate. Pete Carroll went back to the NFL with the Seahawks and did well. John McKay went with Tampa and didn't do so well. Nevertheless, this team went 12-0. They took care of their opponents convincingly. And this was this? Oh no, this wasn't the team. I was going to say this was the team that was down 24-0 to the Irish in their rivalry game, but put up 55. I think it was in 1972. Or was it 74? I can't remember. Nevertheless, They had a remarkable feat. They scored almost 40 points per game. Anthony Davis in the backfield, running the ball, doing well. Sam Bam Cunningham being a good fullback. Mike Ray, QB. So anyway, USC knew what they were doing and wanted to do everything okay. And they did. They beat Ohio State convincingly in the Rose Bowl 42-17. Number 3 is the 1945 Army Black Knights. Of course, World War II was still going on at the time and ended by the time the 45 college football season started. Army had the advantage. Pretty much every war service team had it big. Not only did Army and Navy dominate in the mid 40s, they had Great Lakes Aviation School, Chicago Pre-Flight School. Basically, they would take it's kind of like all-star teams because World War II they needed the bodies. Army ran a roughshod. They won only 9 games. Well, there was only 9 games, and they outscored their opponents 412-46. So they scored more than 40 points a game. I think it was 46, close to 46 points per game. So add 3 more games, you would have added 138 points. You would have hit the 550 mark. Earl Red Blake was a good coach. Doug Blanchard and Glenn Davis both won Heisman's not at the same time, but in their Army career, they dominated every phase of the game. They crushed Notre Dame. They crushed Navy. Their speed, power, and precision was huge, and Army's been good. They've been good in a few of my 2nd and 10 tournaments. Number 2 is the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. The 2001 Canes set a new standard for sheer NFL talent. 12 players from this roster would become first-round draft picks. 12. And in the first round, where you got 32 teams. Larry Coker was a good coach. They went 12-0. They outscored their opponents by average of 33 points per game, crushed Nebraska in the Rose Bowl by 23. They had a great defense. Ed Reed would go on to do much better things for Baltimore. Jonathan Filma would do things for the Ravens too, and the Jets. And Philip Buchanan would do things for the Raiders and Bucks. The offense had Ken Dorsey at quarterback, although his pro career didn't have much to be desired. Clinton Portis, who was a good running back for both Washington and Denver, and Andre Johnson, who was a suffocating wide receiver, and the greatest Houston Texan of all time, J.J. Watt. And then the next year, the Miami Hurricanes went to the national championship again, but shockingly lost to Ohio State. A lot of people said that phantom pass interference call should not have been made. And number 1 is the 1971 Nebraska Cornhuskers. They demolished their opponents. They went 13-0. Their average margin of victory was 29 points. But the big thing about Nebraska is they didn't beat any super lightweights. They had to face Oklahoma, Colorado, and Alabama to get to 13-0. And, those teams were tough, even Colorado back in the day. Nebraska had a great defense. Jerry Tagg was a good quarterback in Nebraska. He went to the CFL after a not-so-great NFL career. And Jeff Kinney was a relentless running back. And let's not forget Johnny the Jet Rogers. Great wide receiver, great punt and kick returner. He showed off his stuff against Oklahoma on Thanksgiving Day on ABC in front of a national audience. And the great I like to say Peter Schmeichel, but Schenkel, but no, Jack Schenkel. No, Chris Schenkel, excuse me, on commentary. So that's what they did. And Nebraska proved their point and all that. So they crushed Alabama in the Orange Bowl and did it. They had a complete team, and that's the way everything seemed to be in Nebraska. Pure joy. Pure happy, happy joy. And that's all I've got to say about that. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.